The rain hammered the pavement, a symphony of city sorrow. Anya Petrova, head down, hurried through it. Another day ending, another night coming. Her apartment building loomed, a grey sentinel against the grey sky. Inside, the air hung heavy with the scent of boiled cabbage and stale dreams. Anya reached apartment 2B, small, sparse, safe. She closed the door, the lock clicking like a bolt snapping shut. For now, she was just Anya Petrova, invisible, unremarkable, alone. Nightfall, the city transformed. Anya's reflection in the mirror did too. Gone was the mousy brown hair, replaced by a cascade of fiery red. Her eyes, usually downcast, blazed with a fierce intelligence. Tonight, she wasn't Anya Petrova. Tonight, she was Anya Volkov. Anya Volkov was different, powerful, wealthy beyond measure, and utterly anonymous. Her face, unknown to the world, was a mask she wore in the digital realm, a world she was about to turn upside down. Anya's fingers danced across the keyboard, her movements a blur. Lines of code scrolled on the screen, a secret language understood by few. She was a phantom, moving through the digital shadows, a ghost in the machine. Her playground was the internet, her weapon, information. Governments and corporations alike feared her. She exposed their secrets, their lies, their corruption. She was a digital Robin Hood, a champion of the people. But even heroes have enemies, and Anya was making powerful ones. The stakes were higher than ever. Anya knew it. Every decision she made, every step she took was fraught with peril. The city was a labyrinth of secrets and dangers, and she was navigating it with the precision of a tightrope walker. Her mission was clear, but the path was anything but. She had to stay vigilant, always aware of her surroundings, always ready to adapt to the unexpected. One wrong move, one slip-up, and everything could come crashing down. The weight of her mission pressed heavily on her shoulders, a constant reminder of what was at stake. She couldn't afford to let her guard down, not even for a moment. The city was unforgiving, and so were the forces that sought to stop her. They were always watching, always waiting for her to falter. Her freedom, her life, these were not just abstract concepts, they were the very essence of her existence. Anya had sacrificed so much to get to this point, and she knew that the cost of failure would be unimaginable. She often found herself staring out at the city, contemplating the enormity of her task. The skyline was a constant reminder of the challenges she faced, but also of the potential for change. She was fighting for a future where information was free, where privacy was a right, not a privilege. In a world increasingly dominated by surveillance and control, Anya's mission was a beacon of hope. She envisioned a society where people could live without fear of being watched, where their personal data was their own. It was a lofty goal, but one that she believed was worth every risk. But the closer she got to her goal, the more dangerous her world became. The opposition grew fiercer, the threats more immediate. Anya could feel the tension in the air, a palpable sense of impending conflict. Every night, as she walked through the city, she felt the eyes on her, the silent observers who would stop at nothing to see her fail. The darkness was both her ally and her enemy, concealing her movements but also hiding those who sought to harm her. The rain continued to fall outside, a relentless reminder of the city's grip. It was as if the very elements were conspiring to keep her in check, to remind her of the ever-present danger. The rain soaked through her clothes, chilling her to the bone, but it also steeled her resolve. She would not be deterred by the elements or by the forces arrayed against her. She had come too far to turn back now. Just like the city, her enemies were always there, lurking in the shadows, waiting for her to make a mistake. They were a constant presence, a shadowy force that sought to undermine her at every turn. Anya had learned to move with caution, to trust no one, and to always be prepared for the unexpected. The shadows were her constant companions, a reminder of the high stakes of her mission. Anya had to be faster, smarter, always one step ahead. Her mind was a whirlwind of strategies and contingencies, each one designed to keep her safe and to advance her cause. She had become a master of adaptation, able to think on her feet and to turn even the smallest advantage into a decisive victory. But the pressure was immense, and the margin for error was razor-thin. But even she couldn't outrun her past forever. The ghosts of her previous actions, the mistakes she had made, and the people she had crossed were all catching up to her. Anya knew that to truly be free, She would have to confront these demons head-on. The path to freedom was not just about evading her enemies, it was about facing her own fears and overcoming them. Only then could she hope to achieve the future she so desperately sought. St. Petersburg, a city of grandeur and decay, a place of beauty and brutality. Anya knew its secrets, its hidden alleys, its forgotten histories. She moved through its streets like a phantom, blending in with the crowds, always watching, always listening. The city was her shield, its anonymity, her armor. But even in a city of millions, Anya felt alone. The weight of her secret, the burden of her mission was a heavy load to bear. She craved connection, a moment of normalcy, but those were luxuries she couldn't afford, not anymore. The lines were blurring. Anya Petrova and Anya Volkov, two sides of the same coin, were becoming harder to separate. The pressure was mounting. She saw the faces of the people she was fighting for, their hope, their desperation. She couldn't let them down. But the cost of her crusade was high. Sleep was a luxury, peace of mind, a distant memory, loneliness. Her constant companion. How much longer could she keep this up? The rain had stopped. The city, drenched and glistening, seemed to breathe a sigh of relief. The storm had been relentless, pounding the streets and washing away the grime of the past few days. Now, as the last droplets clung to the windows and the puddles reflected the grey sky, there was a sense of calm, a momentary pause in the chaos. For the first time in days, the sun broke through the clouds, painting the city in a warm glow. The golden rays touched the tops of buildings, casting long shadows and illuminating the streets below. It was as if the city was waking up from a long, dark slumber, stretching and yawning in the newfound light. People emerged from their shelters, blinking against the brightness, feeling the warmth on their faces. Anya stood by the window, drawn to the unfamiliar light. She had been cooped up inside for what felt like an eternity, the rain and her own thoughts keeping her prisoner. The sunlight was a welcome change, a reminder that there was still beauty in the world, even amidst the turmoil. She watched as the city came alive, the streets bustling with activity once more. A wave of exhaustion washed over her. Doubt crept in. The weight of her responsibilities, the constant pressure to be strong, to lead, was taking its toll. She leaned against the window, her forehead resting on the cool glass, and closed her eyes. The questions that had been plaguing her mind resurfaced, louder and more insistent than ever. Was she making a difference? The thought gnawed at her, a persistent doubt that she couldn't shake. She had sacrificed so much, given everything she had, but was it enough? The faces of those she had helped, the lives she had touched, flashed before her eyes. But so did the faces of those she couldn't save, the ones who slipped through her fingers. Was it all worth it? The sleepless nights, the endless battles, the constant fear of failure. She had lost so much along the way, friends, family, parts of herself that she would never get back. The burden was heavy, and there were times when she wondered if she could continue to carry it, but giving up was not an option. She had come too far, fought too hard. For a moment, just a flicker, Anya Petrova almost broke through the surface. The tears welled up in her eyes, and she felt the familiar sting of emotion threatening to overwhelm her. She had been strong for so long, held everything together with sheer willpower, but now, in this quiet moment, the cracks were starting to show. She was human after all, and the weight of her struggles was almost too much to bear. The longing for a normal life, for love, for someone to share the burden with, was almost unbearable. But the moment passed. She took a deep breath, wiped away the tears and straightened her shoulders. The world outside was still turning, and there was work to be done. She couldn't afford to dwell on what could have been. Her path was set, and she had to follow it, no matter the cost. Anya Volkov pushed the weakness aside. She had faced worse and come out stronger. This was just another challenge, another test of her resolve. She turned away from the window, the light now a source of strength, rather than a reminder of her doubts. She had a mission, a purpose, and she couldn't let anything stand in her way. She had come too far to give up now. The journey had been long and arduous, but every step had brought her closer to her goal. She couldn't let a moment of weakness derail everything she had worked for. She was stronger than that, and she would prove it to herself and to the world. The world was depending on her. The people who looked up to her, who believed in her, were counting on her to lead them through the darkness. She couldn't let them down. With renewed determination, Anya stepped away from the window and back into the fray, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Anya went back to her computer, her fingers flying across the keyboard once more. The world was on the brink. She could feel it. The information she possessed could bring down empires, expose the corrupt, and change the course of history. But it could also cost her everything. She had to be careful, strategic. One wrong move and her enemies would pounce, silencing her forever. The stakes had never been higher. The air crackled with tension, the calm before the storm. Anya took a deep breath. She was ready. The message flashed on her screen. It was a simple notification, but it carried the weight of 1,000 warnings. Anya's eyes widened as she read the words, her mind racing to comprehend the gravity of the situation. She had been careful, meticulous even, but it seemed her precautions were not enough. The digital world she navigated so expertly had betrayed her, revealing her secrets to those who sought to harm her. A challenge, a threat. The message was clear. They were coming for her. The city, once a place of anonymity and refuge, now felt like a sprawling labyrinth of danger. Every shadow seemed to conceal a potential threat, every passerby a possible enemy. Anya's pulse quickened as she realized the full extent of her predicament. They knew who she was. Her identity, once a closely guarded secret, was now exposed. The surveillance footage confirmed her worst fears. She was being watched, tracked. The feeling of being hunted was suffocating, a constant weight on her shoulders. She couldn't afford to make a single mistake. They were coming for her, the shadowy figures in the alleyways, the footsteps that seemed to echo louder than usual. All signs pointed to an imminent confrontation. Anya's mind raced with possible escape routes, but each one seemed more perilous than the last. She had to stay one step ahead, but the odds were stacked against her. Anya's heart pounded in her chest. The fear was palpable. A cold and sharp sensation that shot through her like a dagger. She clutched her chest, trying to steady her breathing, but the anxiety was overwhelming. She had faced danger before, but this was different. This was personal. Fear, cold and sharp, shot through her. The night was unforgiving. The chill in the air, a stark reminder of her vulnerability. She shivered, not just from the cold, but from the realization that her life was about to change forever. There was no going back to the way things were. But there was no time for hesitation, no time for doubt. Anya knew that every second counted. She had to act, and she had to act fast. Her mind was a whirlwind of thoughts, but one thing was clear. She couldn't afford to be paralyzed by fear. Determination set in, replacing the initial shock. She had a choice to make. Disappear, assume a new identity. The thought of leaving everything behind was daunting, but it was a necessary consideration. She quickly packed a bag, her hands moving with a sense of urgency. Passports, IDs, anything that could help her start anew. The life she had built was crumbling, but she wasn't ready to give up just yet. Live a life in the shadows, or fight. The decision weighed heavily on her. She could choose to vanish, to live a life of constant evasion and secrecy, or she could stand her ground, confront the threat head-on. The thought of fighting back ignited a spark within her. She had skills, knowledge, and a fierce determination that couldn't be easily extinguished. Anya's fingers hovered over the keyboard. Her decision was made. She would not run. She would not hide. The resolve in her eyes was unmistakable. She began typing furiously, her mind focused on the task at hand. She was ready to take control of her fate, to turn the tables on those who sought to destroy her. She would not be silenced. The words on the screen were a testament to her defiance. She was determined to expose the truth, to bring her adversaries to justice. The fire within her burned brighter with each keystroke. She was no longer a victim, she was a warrior. She would not back down. She was Anya Volkov. The cityscape stretched out before her, a battleground where she would make her stand. She felt a surge of confidence, a sense of purpose that overshadowed her fear. She was ready to face whatever came her way, and she was ready for war. The stormy clouds mirrored the turmoil within her, but also the strength she had found. Anya pulled up her hood, a symbol of her readiness to confront the darkness. She was prepared for the battle ahead, knowing that she had the courage and resolve to emerge victorious.